Rapping with Dr. JACALYN connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we are thrilled to be broadcasting from a remote location today. We are actually in the Washington, D.C. area, which is really exciting. You are watching Celebrate Great Britain Royally Rich Show, and my friends from across the pond over in the UK are here to help us celebrate the fantastic communities, tourism, and business between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. Let's bring out the stars of our show, HELENA, CHARD, and PELHAM Turner. Welcome.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
Dr. J. So lovely to see you.
So lovely to see you as well. This is so exciting. You've got an amazing guest today, as always.
Yeah, we have an amazing guest, and we've been having fun and games today because we started slightly later, and we were invited to Fortnum and Mason. I don't know if you've been to Fortnum and Mason's. It's a wonderful, wonderful store.
Fortnum and Mason's is the Queen's Grocers as well. So it's the family grocers. And I can't move.
We basically had the most lavish afternoon tea, and it was stunning. Absolutely, everything was so beautiful, delicious. The staff was so attentive. It really is the place to go.
Champagne floats, the whole thing. But now you can see I can't move a muscle now because of my body downwards.
That sounds lovely. Do share some of your favorites that you had today. What were some of the treats that you had?
We had some amazing cakes, for example, and
oh, very nice.
This has got some remnants of cakes, but I won't.
That's a Queen's doggy bag.
I love it.
It was lovely. The champagne was lovely. For me, the champagne was great.
It was very good, as I say. But as I say, from the neck down, I can't move. So I can move my head. And that's it this afternoon.
In fact, he was dozing off just before we were coming on air. I was looking at the links, and I could hear this.
There she is shouting at me. Get up, get up.
Oh, dear.
Oh, that's lovely. Fantastic.
I mean, I think at my age, when you eat a lot, you fall asleep. It's quite simple. It's not rocket science, but I knew we had a show to do. Some very exciting shows.
It is a really exciting show. So what's been happening? There's been lots of glitz and glamour, I think, in Great Britain. I think last night we had it was the Bond movie, wasn't it, premiere? And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge were there. Prince Charles, Camilla Parker Bowles, but it was such a glitzy do, and everyone's talking about that dress.
Oh my gosh, I saw the dress.
How beautiful. I think it's Jenny Packham, I think, but it's just, wasn't it stunning? I mean, she did look $1 million. And wearing that gold, I mean, you were talking about the same dress, I guess, so it's JACALYN.
Yes, and I loved how it was sort of like her arms were showing, and it was just so magnificent.
The wrinkles, the way her hair was. I mean, it was definitely a Bond dress, wasn't it?
You know what's going to happen now, you see, because Charles hates being outshone at any occasion. So I can see him turning up at the next premiere in a gold lame suit. Nothing will surprise me with Prince Charles at the moment either. So look out for a gold lame suit. We predict it here first.
But I have to say, Camilla Parker Bowles, she looked great. I thought her dress was really sophisticated. Hers was blue and twinkly. So it looked like a lovely event. I actually was part of the media team for the launch of the last Bond movie, and it really is quite special. It's really, you've got stars everywhere, and you can really feel the energy. I was shooting; it was just completely mad. It's great fun.
So does it go out in the States yet? Is it simultaneous globally? So I use because it was launched last night, so we can see the movie, I think, from this weekend. I don't know. How about in the States?
I don't actually know. I just saw that it was launched over there. That's what was in the news today. I'll have to look into that on a break.
Because otherwise we can't tell you what goes on, can we? Because
I mean, it's been long awaited. Goodness me, it was just about to be launched, I think, wasn't it? And then we had COVID. So
I'm a huge fan of the Bond movies.
Me too.
And there was quite a very well written commentary that was produced by Daniel Craig and the Bond team, and they went behind the scenes over the course of the year. At the very, very end, he films the last scene for the movie, and he realizes this is the last scene, and the whole cast, the whole team had come in to see him as well. How lovely was that? And he ended up in tears, Daniel Craig.
Oh,
He ended up in tears because he realized it was the last one, but he thanked everybody for being so kind to him.
Oh,
yeah, that's beautiful.
He's a really nice guy.
Is it the last Bond film?
No.
That's going to run and run. But who is going to be the new Bond? That's the thing. I mean, everyone's talking about the new Bond. Are you pointing at me or you? Everyone's talking about the new Bond, but I don't know. Who do you think would make a good Bond? What do you think?
Well, let's start with who is our favorite Bond.
I like Daniel. I like Daniel Craig.
I think Craig was good. I think
Connery. You're going to say Connery?
I like Sean Connery. He was my favorite.
He's really iconic, isn't he?
I'm trying to think of the other one. Who's
Pierce Brosnan?
No, he played the Saint as well.
Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah, Pierce.
Oh, no.
No.
I don't remember. Well, he obviously wasn't.
Roger Moore.
Oh, okay. Roger Moore. Yeah.
Oh, Roger Moore. Yes, he was good also.
I think
they're talking about it. There's this new scenario, isn't there? Everyone's saying, should we have a new type of Bond? And they've even been saying, should there be a female Bond?
I was just thinking that.
But call me old-fashioned. But, if the person's called James Bond, I sort of feel it should still be a man.
Well,
is that a bit controversial? I don't know. I do. I really do. And I suppose we're going by the book as well, because the book was obviously written for a certain style of gentleman, and everyone is rewriting history. And I think it should continue, because we can still bring out new Bondish kind of movies, can't we? And use whoever we want.
Absolutely right.
Anyway,
there could be this aged Bond.
How much champagne did you have to drink, Ian?
I'm up for it.
There's you with your knee. I mean, you have to be jumping through fire.
Bring me down.
Oh, goodness me.
I for one would advocate to have Ian be the next Bond, but we'd have to see how you are in terms of, kicking and punching and.
I think I would probably be better to be Bond in a Bond type wheelchair or something. I think. I think I could be Bond's father or something. But
you could get fit, couldn't you? That's a thought.
I am fit from the waist upwards.
No, we have
it's
to.
Just
we
my
have to
needs.
real.
Anyway. I don't know what we're talking about this afternoon. We've had
as we digress.
This afternoon.
We have. I mean, goodness me.
So if people can't understand what we're saying, JACALYN, it's put it down to the champagne and too much cake, too much sugar.
Sugar overload. So what else is going on over there?
I mean, there's been lots of royal things. I mean, I have to say, one of the sweetest things I thought was the Duchess of Cambridge. I just remembered it. There was a PR little stunt where she went to see Emma Raducanu and some of the other winners from the Grand Open, and they were, how people were looking at body language, and they were saying that Emma was absolutely so nonplussed. She was completely unfazed. But the Duchess of Cambridge, when she met Emma, was so excited. She was like really, really couldn't believe it. And they had like a knock around on the tennis court. And I just thought it was quite sweet, because I don't know, you'd imagine it being the other way around, wouldn't you? I just think she's very real. So it's lovely to see.
And I think we're looking over here as well. Is it Time magazine that put the front cover of Harry and Meghan this week? There's some new there's a new photograph where they're being attacked at the moment.
Yes.
On this side. I think it's Time magazine, yeah, as well. That's been happening this week. So the royals, as always, are in the news.
They are. But also, if you would like to buy a big Scottish estate neighbouring Balmoral, it's actually on the market. It's 23 million. But the good thing is, if you did buy into it, it's the first time, I think, in 500 years that it's become available. But it does mean that you'd be mixing as well with lots of great people.
Well, Simon McDonald for one.
That's who I was talking about, Ian. Come on. So that's quite fun. And there's also, this is also vitamin, and we always have something to do with COVID. So apparently one of the side effects is that you lose your sense of smell if you contract COVID. But they're bringing out, I think it's vitamin A that's supposed to restore your sense of smell. Again, in nose drops. I believe we were talking about something like llamas last week, but this is vitamin A, so this is a little bit more run of the mill. So that's the other bit of news. And the other, well, just to end, I mean, I don't know what it's like with you, Dr. J, but we don't have very much petrol at the moment, and the whole world needs to get to work and various things. And there's queues in all of the garages, with the people trying to get petrol, and people breaking down all over the place at different times of the morning. Which is completely mad, but I'm sure we'll get it together. Our country always does.
What time were you out the other morning?
I was out at 2:30 in the morning trying to get petrol. I just dropped my mother back home, and the queues were going for miles, and everyone was bibbing. It was completely mad. It's one of those things that happens, I guess, but it will turn around.
Now you see why I don't drive anymore. I'm of an age now where people condescend or are very kind to me, and they pick me up in their cars. So I don't have to worry about such things anymore at all. So
no, you used to drive a lot, didn't you?
I feel like I'm lurching this afternoon. I feel like I'm at an angle at the moment.
I think we are. We've not.
I'm like this ship that's going slightly sideways. I've had too much to eat.
Well, I saw in some other news that I watched your first show, which is amazing. Do you want to share about that?
Thank you. Well,
thank you.
We will, and we would like you on our next show. So we need you. If you could just get your diary out whilst we're on air.
Absolutely.
We're trying to film, the next one we're going to film is the 29th of October. It's a Friday afternoon, but we will send you an invite as well. At the moment, it's going quite well. Hopefully it goes out to some of our audiences this weekend as well. I think we're pleased with it. We can see things that there are still issues with it, but it's early days, and you will know yourself as well. I mean, you've got it off pat now, on how you produce your shows, and it does take time to actually sort of look at these things. So I think we still need to understand our camera angles a little bit, but we're good. It's a start. We're pleased with things. Thank you for the comments as well. That's really kind of you.
Yeah, I found this show very enjoyable, and it was nice to see some familiar faces. So for people who are just tuning in or who aren't aware, why don't you just give a little overview about your new show?
Well, the idea behind the show is called Celebrate Great Britain News Show. And again, it's very similar to what we're doing with yourself as well. We both feel it's very important at the moment to promote Britain, and we promote communities, tourism, business, and young people. And so we film back to back. We film 2 shows at a time at the moment. So the second show will come out, I think, next month. And we had this young boy who plays the double bass, would you believe?
Great. For the second show. That's in the second show, though. That's in the second show.
That was the second show. So it is a passion for both of us really that we should give really the skills that we've got to actually promote Britain at this time across the world. And so we've got some great platforms like yourself as well, to actually go out and really sort of show the greatness in Great Britain.
Absolutely, and it's so needed more than ever, I think, at this minute. And you know what, our guest today is absolutely fabulous, and I think he reflects, everything that we're doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
We'll invite him on shortly, but
I would agree with you.
Really, really amazing. I'm in awe, put it that way. And I think it comes back to that same thing we were talking about last week, with repairing the planet, people working together. And we were talking about, humans having the extraordinary power to solve the greatest challenges. And our guest that's coming on, Brendon Prince, I think is the epitome of this, driven, adventurous, tenacious, strength, everything about him, and he has achieved so much. And I think above all, wanting to make a difference. And I think that's what we all do. And that's so important again at this moment. So I'm thrilled to have him with us. He's
accomplished a number of number one feats, which I think is terrific. So before we bring him out, why don't we take a break? And Helena, I would love for you to tee up for our audience the Earthshot Prize, because I think that would be a great clip to play right now.
Yeah, it's lovely. So, it's a fabulous thing. So the following clip has inspired people all over the world to work together and basically repair the planet. So this is what we're going to see, and it's a really empowering little clip. And obviously, the ambitious Earthshot Prize was launched in 2020, and it ties in with this clip. So let's watch.
Let's take a look, and we'll be right back.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that. We face a series of unprecedented challenges to nature and life on Earth. But
we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing.
and welcome back to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads. And also welcome to Business Talk Radio for those of you listening to our platform, our show as well. You are watching or listening to Celebrate Great Britain, Royally Rich Show. And the stars of our show, Helena and Ian, are here in our first segment. We heard all about their shenanigans earlier today. Which sounds like a lovely tea party that they went to. And I know you've got a great guest waiting backstage, so I'll turn it over to you to introduce him.
So we have a fabulous guest. We're honoured to have Brendon Prince with us. He has achieved so much. He's hugely driven. He's got so much energy. There are so many things he stands for. He's actually the first person to circumnavigate mainland Britain on a paddleboard as well. I know he's absolutely water safety awareness is his number one thing, but also mental health awareness. He's a great champion for men's health. So there's so much that yes, Brendon can talk about, but he has recently completed this circumnavigation, and I'm just intrigued and excited to hear really all his stories and just how he feels and really everything he's achieved, because I know that it's a charitable situation as well. So let's bring Brendon out.
Here he is. Welcome, Brendon.
Hi, how are we doing, guys?
Brendon, good afternoon.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us so much.
So, Brendon, you've really achieved something that is quite incredible. There's no two ways about it. But what gave you the idea in the first place? I know there's some inspiration behind this whole thing as well, and a lot of meaning. So just give us a little bit of an insight on what sort of first gave you the thought process to do this.
Wow. Yeah, that's the main question, really. So I've been a stand-up paddleboarder since paddleboarding came out in the early noughties, and it's something I love. It's something I do. I race and I surf stand-up paddleboard and I adventure stand-up paddleboard, and it just seemed to click that, do you know what? If I want to actually get people to listen to me more on a not just a national level, but on an international level about water safety and what we need to do about water safety to make our planet a safer place. 340,000 people drown every year. If we want to do something a bit more about this and actually set up a 21st century solution to some of these problems, then I need to do something a little bit what people call crazy themselves. So I thought, well, let's combine the paddleboarding, which I do, to something that's never been achieved before, and let's stand up paddleboard around Britain and see if we can do it.
Thanks, Brendon. And yeah, it is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've got so many questions I just want to fire at you, but I know.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
And I'm just, we will go through one by one. Preparation. Well, we find in what we do, we have to do loads of preparation. It takes weeks, and it's things that people would never dream of. How did you prepare? And were there challenges? I'm sure there's lots you can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, the very simple idea was Tor Bay, which is a small bay in the southwest of England. The idea was I paddle out of Tor Bay and I turn right, and I just keep turning right, and eventually I'll get back to Tor Bay. That was the simple way of looking at it. The complexities of making that happen, both on a team effort, the daily implications of making sure I was safe, what I was doing with the equipment and all the things I had, but then my ground team, because I was doing it without a boat support. And that was part of the big mission, to actually prove that it can be done with the right preparation, planning, skill level. Was hard. It took 4 months. It took 4 months of planning, 4 months of me physically training to up my game as well for the paddleboarding itself, to actually be ready for my off on the 27th of April this year.
Brendon, this is such an amazing accomplishment. I actually have a paddleboard, and I do stand-up paddleboarding myself, and so I have so much respect for what you're doing and what you've done. Have you held other similar events?
Have I? Sorry, say that quite. I didn't quite get the question.
Have you done other similar events?
Yeah, so I've done other smaller challenges within stand-up paddleboarding to prepare myself for it. I've also done some 50-mile swims because of my water background. And my background really is in the water, sailing, kayaking, canoeing, and also mountaineering. So I've climbed some of the biggest mountains on our planet and visited some amazing rivers to do some fantastic paddling. So yeah, I have a background of kind of getting out there and doing these sort of crazy challenges. And that's why it all sort of came together to take on something that someone's never achieved before, and something that I knew was going to take the whole summer and experience some amazing conditions to obviously achieve it.
Well done.
Brendan, I know as well that part of the inspiration was some of the experiences you had as a lifeguard. So can you just tell us a little bit about, because I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I think you perhaps saw someone drowning or you had similar experiences like that and you wanted to try and bring a lot more attention to this. But just give us a little bit of an insight into your times as a lifeguard.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a lifeguard for over 20 years as a volunteer lifeguard, because obviously I'm a teacher, an outdoor education teacher as well. And through my time, both being on the water as an instructor and as a lifeguard, I've seen people lose their lives. Now, as a lifeguard, you can prepare and you can deal with that. But one thing that struck me in a situation a few years ago when I was off duty and had to try and rescue 3 people was if those people have got all their families and extended families on the beach, actually seeing the implications of a loved one, tragically drown, the impact is catastrophic. And seeing in this particular situation, the children, the wife, the aunties, uncles, the grandparents, all there witnessing this tragic event. And then you suddenly realize that 600 or 700 people in Britain drown every year, and 340,000 on our planet drown every year. Now, that had a huge impact on me, to the point that actually I gave up my 25 years of teaching career to actually do this full time. And this is where now I'm at actually trying to promote water safety and drowning prevention, both in schools and communities, and just get us thinking differently to actually challenge ourselves whenever we're near water. And the tragic thing is that most drownings happen to people that have no intention of going in water at all. It just so happened they might be walking, running along a beautiful bit of riverway or coastal waters. And it's getting these people to understand that there's always a danger if you're in, near or around water.
Brendan, just a supplementary question, sorry on that. So you're in the water and you feel insecure. What should you do?
Well, the biggest thing with water is most people think they can deal with it. So they're overconfident in what they can deal with. And you've got an 80% chance of dealing with a drowning situation if you can swim already. Unfortunately, the statistics on being able to swim just aren't there. Most people can't swim, especially in a situation which is not a nice, warm swimming pool, but a coastal environment or river environment where the water is cold. And it's the panic that kills people, not necessarily the situation. They panic. So it's all about not panicking. If you were to fall into a river or the sea, for example, it's all about just lying on your back, just floating. We can all float, especially if you've got clothes on, just floating and actually spending that moment. It might take 30 seconds. It might take a minute to just actually, what has just happened to me? The automatic response is just to try and get out of the situation. And it's that situation when people try and fight a current or realize that their clothes are dragging in the water or any of these things, that's when they panic. They take water on board, and that leads to drowning in under a minute. It's so quick. And it's something that we should all realize, that the films portray the image that if you're drowning, you're going to call for help. That never happens. In all my lifeguarding time, I've never heard someone who is drowning be able to call for help. It doesn't happen. Why would they use their last dying breaths to call when they're actually trying to stay alive? It doesn't happen. So to answer your question, Ian, if you actually ever in that situation, lie on your back, let your body acclimatize to the situation. You can also use that time to plan, right, how am I going to get out of this situation? How am I going to get, and then perhaps call for help rather than trying to do that straight away. Cold water shock is a big killer. Any water under 16 degrees can lead to cold water shock. Cold water shock can lead to panic. Most waterways in Britain are under 16 degrees. So it's conveying this message that don't panic, float on your back, let your body acclimatize, and then try and work a plan, a strategy to get out of the water.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Helen. Gosh, you just wouldn't think. I mean, myself, the thought of water and sea and just this, it's so much stronger and more powerful than us, and it makes me personally feel quite scared. And I was thinking about you and this big trip that you've done, and you must have had challenges along the way. I mean, just off the top of my head, I mean, you must have been burning off so many calories if you were on a paddleboard for how many hours a day?
My average was just over 10 hours a day.
10 hours on a paddleboard. I mean, you're so strong, goodness, and that's strong physically, but also mentally to do that. So, I mean, what were the hardest challenges? I just picked that up because it just went through my mind. But what other challenges?
Yeah, I mean, even with 4 months of planning, it took 6 weeks for my body to kind of understand actually what was happening to it. So I could paddle up to 16 hours a day. I was averaging over 10 hours a day. And it took 6 weeks for my body to adjust physically and mentally to understand, well, actually, this is what I'm now doing for the foreseeable future. I lost a lot of weight in those first 6 weeks. And yes, up to 10,000 calories a day I was burning. And in fact, that was one of the only issues I had was the amount you have to eat and just having a sore mouth from constantly eating. And food can be, especially the type of food I'm eating, can be quite boring and mundane. So that was a bit of a challenge. But after 6 weeks, my body really cut in and realized that this is what's happening. I lost a lot of muscle bulk because it's all about muscle endurance, not muscle strength. And yeah, the challenge is both physically and more so for me mentally, to understand that the mind can be quite a dangerous thing left to its own devices for 10 hours a day when you've got very little stimulus. And what I mean by that is once you've seen beautiful cliffs and fantastic waterways for an hour or 2 or 3, it becomes very samey, like any environment really. So I had to actively keep my mind engaged and keep it constructive and keep it switched on, because especially in the likes of Scotland, weather conditions and water movement can change within 15 minutes from the most amazing, beautiful day to the worst conditions you could possibly imagine. So you have to be alert at all times, watching conditions and following those conditions and planning that. And that becomes something that you have to check constantly and is a big part of a challenge like this. And one of the main reasons it hasn't been achieved before, because of those issues of what can suddenly happen to you and having the skills to deal with it. But yeah, I played some amazing games myself. One thing that I think people love to hear is the different activities I did. So one activity I did, which took the best part of 3 days to achieve, so the best part of 30 hours to achieve, was to name all the human beings that I know and have engaged with through my life. And that took a long thought process. You go down many channels in your brain, but do you know what? The hours pass by and all of a sudden you finished your paddle for the day because you've been keeping engaged positively through that time.
Wow. Brendon, wow. I am just blown away by what you're sharing. I have the utmost respect for what you've accomplished. My longest that I've ever been out paddling is 1 hour and 45 minutes. And a couple of things that happened, and I'd love for you to comment on them. What I found was that my feet go numb. I mean, you're standing on there and putting all that pressure on your feet. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, so that would happen to everybody. Because if you're standing still for so long, I mean, if I just asked you to stand still for 1 hour and 45 minutes, your legs and everything would go fairly numb. So it's all about moving. So I'm constantly moving on my board, just shuffling up, shuffling back. And that comes with experience. The more experience you've got on the board, the more you're willing to move, because for those new to the board, you're rooted to the spot, and you're quite the tension in your legs is there, and that's very tiring. And you just got to let it loose and just move with the board, move with the water.
Thank you. I found that when I first started, I had sort of like a death grip on the board with my toes. So just another quick question. I also found that when I would start out on the bay, and the bay would come into the ocean, and where like this certain point, it would get very rough, and that sense of panic, of complete dread that, you might fall off the board, because I never want to fall off. And so I kind of would talk myself through it, not to panic, but I'm sure there's obviously situations where you must have felt like that too, where it's just, you could literally be thrown off and you have to calm yourself down. And I just wonder what process you use for that.
That's actually a great question, because you've touched on the panic thing again, and lots of paddleboarders, especially new to paddleboarding, just because you don't want to fall off. Actually, the process of falling off is part of paddleboarding. I fell off, 14 times in 4,000 kilometers. It was well logged by my support team, because they wanted me to fall off a lot more than that. But falling off is part of the process. And you hit the nail on the head there, in that if you fall off and panic, that's where the situation gets really tricky. So it's about overcoming that and understanding that. And the process of why you might fall off, I was physically knocked off by waves or huge swell or wind, or indeed killer whales. So, that process, how do you deal with it? And for me, it's all about breathing. It's amazing how when a panic situation happens, you hold your breath. That process of holding your breath actually reduces the amount of oxygen in your head. It's simple biomechanics, simple physiology. And if you're reducing the oxygen to your brain, your thinking process, your problem solving is reduced. So whenever you're in those situations, the deep breath into the nose, out to the mouth is hugely important to be able to let your body deal with the situation. And you said, as you come out of a bay and you hit conditions that are a bit more gnarly, being able to just breathe is a huge process. And I've experienced some fairly major conditions, and to have that, being able to breathe and then work the situation out, work through it, and let my skill level come through it is hugely important.
I love that. Great coaching. Thank you so much. Which leads me to my last question for right now. We talk about the panic. So I never wanted to fall off. And that was my goal, because I don't want to be in the water with the sea life, because that also terrifies me. That's why I started paddleboarding anyway, just to get over it. So how about you? Have you seen sea life? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Oh, have I seen sea life? Where do we start? I've seen 10,000 seals in the sea, 1,000 seals swimming around me and trying to get on my board. I've seen 200-300 dolphins at one go, all swimming over to see me. I've seen minke whales. I've seen pilot whales chatting to each other in the water in Scotland. Sea otters, Porth beetle sharks, which are kind of miniature great whites. Not very harmful, but trust me, they panic you. But the story that everyone loves to hear, and the biggest encounter I had was with killer whales. So orcas up in Scotland are quite prolific, and they're an amazing hunters and love being up in Scotland. It's perfect water for them. I was paddling on an evening, and in Scotland it doesn't get dark till 12 o'clock at the summertime, and this was about 8 o'clock. So getting sort of duskish, and it was dank and dark evening, and basically a killer whale came up behind me. Now, I've never seen killer whales in the wild, and I was amazed by the sheer size of it. I thought it was a boat actually coming up behind me. And its surprise and the way I turned, I actually fell off the board, because its bow wave kind of hit the board, and I looked around and I was in the water. And at that moment, I thought, do I panic and try and get out of the water back on my board, or do I just sit and just let this experience happen and let it go past? And I think actually it was better to do the latter, and I did that, and I just let this huge male killer whale, the fin is 6 foot out of the water, just cruise past the other side of my board. And once it cruised past, I thought, wow, what an experience. And as I'm climbing back up onto my board, another one just brushed past my feet behind me. an amazing experience. I had 2 more encounters later that day as the weather got worse and it got darker. And after the 3rd encounter, I thought, do you know what? I'm actually going to try and head in now because I don't really want to be out here. These guys are feeding and I don't want to be mistaken for one of the many seals that were swimming around me.
Wow, I'm like shivering over here thinking about that. That's amazing. You're so brave and so strong. And by the way, we do have 2 clips that I'd love to have us take a look at as well. But thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
Brendan, as well, you talk about all these experiences now. What do you think you've learned about yourself now doing all these experiences?
Do you know what? You can have many experiences in your life and that makes you a richer human being for it. And you learn from it and you can turn those experiences, negative or positive, into perpetuate a better life for yourself. The last 4.5 months, I've never had anything I've spent so long doing. And it really did teach so many things, too many things to go into now really. But the main one is understanding perspective on life. And when I say that, and it sounds quite grand, but I'll give you an example. There were so many times when I was paddling that there would be something ahead of me. Now, on a paddleboard, on a reasonably clear day, you can see 5 to 10 kilometers away. And I might see something that I'm thinking, right, I've got to prepare for this. It might be, for example, standing waves on a headland. Now, standing waves where water is channeled and going around a headland can be 10 foot high, and it can be a half a kilometer worth of that. And they can be really dangerous conditions. And you can see those 5K away. Now, when you see that wall of water, automatically you start to panic. You start to think, well, how am I going to deal with this? I'm on a paddleboard, which is just like a cork in the ocean. So how am I going to deal with it? And as you get closer and closer, you start to panic a little bit more, I suppose, and you start to worry and you're concerned. But do you know what? As that wall of water starts to come closer and closer, and often you find the last 500 meters, because water speeds up towards these things, you have less time to think about it. And then you suddenly realize that all that worry that you've had for the last 30 minutes, it might have been, is nothing, because that perspective of wall of water actually isn't a wall at all. It's 2 walls of water that you can just slip through the middle. And it's a great metaphor for life, that we've got so much that is huge and in our faces and in our lives that we worry and concerned about. But actually, you just rely on your skill level, you rely on what your ability, and when you get to that situation, it might not be anything like you perceived it to be. And that's a big lesson for me, and I look at things very differently off the back of that perception. And because often that wall of water it's an opportunity to just slip through as fast as you can and actually benefit from. So that's one of my big lessons from this. There's so many more after 4.5 months of being on the water on your own, but that's one of the main ones.
Gosh. Brendan, I know that we've got some clips. Now, we received those quite last minute, so I'm not quite sure what we have, but it may be quite nice just to show. We should just show them. I'll show one to begin with, and let's just see, because I know, having looked at your social media and various things, there are so many clips. I wish we could show them all, but should we do that, Dr. Joe?
Yeah, heaven knows what you've got, so it'll be interesting to see.
We've got 2 clips, the Long Paddle 2021 and the Long Paddle Expectations. Which one would you like us to play first, Brendan?
Off the top of my head, I have no idea what either one is. So go for it.
All right, here we go.
Hi, Brendan Prince here from the Long Paddle 2021. Awesome to be here in Essex, finally, after the last 121 days of paddling. And we're really excited to be heading across the bay here and going on to Clacton and further around, depending on what the wind will allow us to do. So it's just great to be in Essex after Suffolk and Norfolk for the last week. Oh, that's a really short day. I'm like, this is a really easy day. So I'm going to get to there today, and then tomorrow, kind of banana round.
All right.
So my questions are, the inlets there, is it a really strong wind sucking me in? Will I be able to pass banana round? That's my only concern, which I won't know until I'm there.
No.
Right, So looking forward to an awesome paddle in Essex. Going to see some amazing things. Could even see some planes flying over, which all adds to the enjoyment and the interest of paddling along an amazing coastline. At the minute, it's super flat, so let's hope that stays.
You know what? I've never seen that before, so that was nice for me to see too.
So you were somewhere on your journey there.
Yeah, I think that was Felixstowe, and that's a good example of wherever I landed. Often people would meet me and just come and paddle a little bit with me to start off my day. So there were 3 lovely ladies there from one of the local subgroups that just paddled with me for a couple of 100 meters and then went back. And that's just so encouraging. And it's also interesting that day turned from those beautiful still conditions to 45-mile-an-hour winds and having to surf in the beach 10 hours later. It was horrible. So just goes to show on this coast you can have anything.
Brendan, I just have a question about the clip. So I noticed straight on that your feet got wet and you had, I don't know what kind of shoes you had on, but how do you keep your body warm when you have something? Are they waterproof? Like, how do you keep your body temperature elevated?
It's something that's a little bit easier to do through the summer months because the ambient temperature is not so low anyway. But yeah, you get your feet wet constantly. And I've had 4.5 months of soggy feet. So it's just about making sure they're dry at the end of the day. Otherwise your feet start to rot with all the salt. But yeah, they're not waterproof. They're just boots that just give me a nice grip and just keep, because of the warm, a bit like waterproof boots, but they've got, they let the water in, which means the body heats the water up and keeps your feet warm as such. But yeah, that's just, that was a nice day. We had probably about 15 days where the water was like you saw it there in the whole of the 141 days, because most of the time it was pretty choppy.
Wow, that's
Thank
what
you.
While you were talking, I was thinking about the weather. So how do you predict the weather? I mean, did you use a weather app? Do you use just your intuition? I don't know, you tell me. I mean it's probably been so long that maybe you can tell when something's a brewing or...
Yeah, absolutely. So national weather is fairly accurate. So fairly accurate within the 6-hour window. Beyond 6 hours, actually, national weather can change and get it wrong. But it's fairly accurate within 6 hours. So you use that, and I've got about 8 different apps that I use on my phone, which tell me what potentially can happen. But one of the great skills of doing something like this is the ability to read what you see, because local weather is very different to national weather. And nationally, it could say that it's fine and everything's well, but actually on a local level, you could have 20, 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and that will create swell, and obviously related to what the tide is doing as well at that particular area. So you have to have that ability to understand the weather. In the south of England, most of England, actually, weather doesn't really change much over an hour, and you can see it happening within an hour. Scotland, parts of Wales, basically the weather can change within 15 minutes. So you have to be able to read that, because very rarely I'm not that close to the coast. I could be 10, 15, 20 miles, 30 kilometers offshore. because I'm going from headland to headland to try and cut down the amount of distance I have to travel around Britain. So I'm always reading the weather, because if I'm way out, I have to understand that actually if that weather's changing, I need to get in or change direction to work with that weather, not against it.
Gosh. Thank you for that. I mean, obviously you've achieved 3 world records. Everyone's talking about it now, water safety, and just thinking, you were raising money as well for various charities, weren't you? So from a charitable point of view, it's obviously that was very important for you. Were these charities close to your heart, I'd imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. So there were 2 things we were kind of raising money for. One was to create this water safety app that will be free to schools, and that's a 21st century to an issue of educating our children, or helping our teachers educate our children in schools about water safety and draining prevention. So that was our sponsorship focus. And then we had our charity focus, which were 7 charities that, yes, close to my heart. They were water safety charities, so the R&I, SLSGB, and Above Water. And then mental health, men's mental health. I mean, I'm late 40s, and I see within my friends the difficulties in modern life that they're encountering. So Andy's Man Club was something that I wanted to promote and get it out there. Also, the ability to use water to help people overcome problems. So that's where the WAVE project came in. And then something that's close to my heart, which is Christian surfers. So as a man of faith and loving surf, it works that what Christian surfers do is actually help people to get on the water and just talk and just have a chat and use it as a medium to overcome boundaries. So they were kind of the 7 charities that I chose to support from this, which, at the minute it's doing really well. But as people in the know say, that you earn about 20% of what you're trying to achieve whilst you do the challenge. And then the other 80% comes over the next 6 months. So that's why talking to you guys and continuing to spread the message of what we're trying to do is so important.
It's so important. Thank you. Gosh, you fitted in so much there. That's brilliant. Thanks so much. And on a slightly different tilt now, I mean, obviously you've completed lots of adventures, including this. I mean, is there anything else? Are there any other adventures you're thinking about in the background?
That's the $1 million question, and a question my wife asks me quite regularly. Nothing that will take me away from my family for 4.5 months again. But yeah, there are quite a few things next year that both my sponsors and people around me are suggesting. I'm having some great suggestions, paddling around Victoria Island, Vancouver Island, and other places around the planet to actually get the SUP message out there, the water safety, because SUP is really taken off as an activity in sport, but also to continue promoting the water safety and just keeping what I'm trying to do on the lips of the different media around our planet is really important. And I'm doing interviews for Australia, for South America, and it's just brilliant. And I would never have had this platform without doing this sort of challenge. So of course I'll continue the challenge going, but what it is yet is a bit of a secret.
Thank you, Brendan. What a noble cause. Keep up the great work. And you touched on something that I've been thinking this whole time. What does your family think about all of this?
Well, my family are water. They're all water babies. My children all understand it and get it. They're of an age that they can understand it and benefit from it. And hopefully I'm making them proud in what we're trying to do, but they're a massive part. They are my life. So it's all about incorporating them. And my amazing wife, who, has held the fort, not just held the fort, but taken it to another level whilst I've been away. So yeah, without the team of them and my support crew, these things can't be achieved on your own. So it's a big collective effort to make a difference. And hopefully that teamwork within my family and around me helps to inspire as well, because it's all about collectiveness and trying to work with people, not just trying to do things on your own.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Now, Brendan, you talk about your family, but as a boy, you grew up on a farm. How does a boy who grows up on a farm decide to paddle around Britain? How does that work?
Do you know what? Somebody said you can't believe it unless you see it. And unfortunately, there are lots of people who can't see what they can achieve because it's not shown to them. I had parents who showed me the limit, the limits of what they can achieve. So I was always, I climbed Rakaposhi, which is one of the top 10 mountains by 17. They always showed me and supported me. And my river at the back of my house was a great opportunity to build craft that could one day perhaps negotiate circumnavigating Britain. So I never had a paddleboard back in the day, but I had lots of planks of wood and things that I stood on and tried to emulate such things. So it's all about having aspirations, isn't it? And if what I'm doing and why I go into schools and give those children's aspirations that they can achieve anything. And that, I had a message the other day from a lad in Yorkshire who a 10-year-old lad, and he's standing there with his homemade paddle and a homemade paddleboard. And he says on the message, "Brendan, I love what you did and I followed you all summer. And when I'm old enough, I'm going to beat your circumnavigation record." And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I wish him well. And I'll go and find that lad next time up in Yorkshire and have a paddle with him.
I love that. So you must get, because you're a teacher, aren't you? So you must get lots of children sending you messages, I imagine. Yeah,
fantastic. And you're one of the best I did an interview just 10 minutes before I came on with you guys with a GCSE student who needs to do a project. So he phoned me and said, can I, I don't know this lad, he lives up north somewhere and he's using me as his GCSE project. And to talk to him and to kind of inspire him a little bit, that's just fantastic. And I admired him for reaching out to me, that took a lot of effort from his behalf.
How lovely. That's so lovely. Also, I heard that you trialed out survival clothing in, is it Iceland?
I did. Yeah, that was an experience. So back in the 90s, a material called Pertex 6 and piled fiber, which is basically what dry robes are now, for example, was a new technology back then. And the process we went through was we would put on this gear and we would we'd cut a hole in the ice, we'd jump into the water and we'd answer questions and see how our body was reacting and how these materials would protect us in such a cold environment. And I did 3 sessions and passed out in all 3 sessions after 9 minutes, whereas normally you'd only last 5 minutes. So they proved that by wearing this equipment, you could actually survive a bit longer. But not something that I'd advise for most people, but that's something I did in my youth when you kind of sign up for these things and say, yeah, that's a great idea. And then looking back on it, you think, well, actually, that was a bit crazy, really.
Funny. Just one thing just off the top of my mind. Has anyone asked you to trial their paddle boards?
Yeah. So trialing their paddle boards, trialing their paddles, lots of people, lots of sponsors saying, actually, can you come and try this on and use that? So, and that again perpetuates what I'm trying to do and achieve. So entering into that world that I haven't really experienced before is exciting and fun, but also can really help to benefit what we're doing.
Can I just ask a question? Are there any sponsors that you would like to just thank, because obviously sponsorship is an important thing as well?
That's very kind. I mean, SICK paddleboards, SIC paddleboards, Blackfish paddles. An American firm actually is my main clothing sponsor, which is Showers Pass. Thanking to them. Yak Clothing, GeoTracks for actually tracking the whole, as a third party tracking the whole mission that we did. Shorties T-shirts, Priority Pixels for providing the website for us. Peugeot Cars Europe provided 2 vans for us, so a massive thank you to Peugeot. The list goes on, and then they're all the main ones, and I'm sure I've missed someone off there, but yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to say those different people.
Brendan, you're such an inspiration, and yet you're so humble. You're so down to earth. So I really applaud you for that, because you seem to be very real, a real person who wants to give back and help others, and is just so caring. So thank you. And I also want our audience to know that in addition to this, you have also gone ice climbing in the mountains. So I think it was the Himalayas, the Alps, and the Rockies, which is incredible. I know you can't talk about all of your adventures, but are there still adventures out there that you can share with us that you're interested in accomplishing?
Yeah, mainly it's the water ones now. I got to a point, I did lots of, as you say, ice climbing and traditional climbing, and it's a dangerous pursuit, no doubt about it. And if you pursue that way of your life, you have to be, with a family. It's something that actually I've always been interested in the water, love the water, and done so much in the water. And I find that I'm more in tune with the water, so I reduce the risks that I'm putting for myself and for my family. So that's why my adventures now, there's some big rivers around this planet I'd love to paddle. There's some other islands that I'd like to paddle around, and there's some big continents that offer some great paddling. So not quite sure where it's going to be yet. At the minute, a lot of it is angling towards North America. So we'll see what happens over the next 12 months.
Lovely. Thank you. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have you here today. I'm going to spotlight you. If you could share with our audience, people listening on the radio and also watching, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who should reach out to you?
So my website, www.thelongpaddle.co.uk, thelongpaddle.co.uk, is the website for my mission that I've been on and the mission I'm presently continuing on. So please go through there and check out The Long Paddle on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And you can direct message me. I'm very open to just having a chat about anything that we've done, or perhaps any help or sponsorship or contribution or ideas. All those things are hugely important. So really happy to engage and use any of those platforms to do that, please.
Thank you so much. I really have enjoyed meeting you, and I wish you continued success. And anything that you guys want to say before we end our show for today?
Gosh, just thank you so much, Brendan. I can't wait. We can't wait to see how the app, do we know a little bit more about that? Is that something you're working on now, or is it going to be?
Yes, working on now, and hoping that will be live, free to all schools in this country to start with, hopefully international thereafter by September next year. So we've got this kind of year to make it happen, and it's gamified as well. That's the beauty, that's the difference. Giving a child a game to play where they're enjoying a game, but actually at the same time they're learning water safety is where it's cutting edge and 21st century solution. So yeah, it takes a bit of time to sort this out, and of course the cost of it, but we're hoping that will all be ready just after Christmas to test and then to go for it next September.
And I think, Brendan, as well, the show's called Celebrate Great Britain. You are a great British person, so thank you. And
it's very kind.
Really, quite honestly, it's your type of spirit that we want to promote right across the world right now.
That's incredibly kind, and I just appreciate your time to listen, and some great questions, and lovely to share these experiences with you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brendan. Lovely to meet you.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye. Bye. Fabulous guest. Love everything he's doing. Thank you so much. Before we head out, Helena and Ian, would you like to give any information about how our audience can watch your show, your other show?
Our new show, it should be going out before too long. I mean, we're still working on things, so we're on Facebook, but I think the reality is that we're still talking to our TV platforms right now, so it should be going out on our TV platforms next week. In UK, it's going out on Freeview. It's also going out on Sky Channel. We're also talking to Amazon Fire as well. So I think the reality at the moment is, it's early days, and we're taking a baby step at a time at the moment. We're following your success and trying to learn from you as well about how you created such a successful project. And so we're taking a baby step at a time at the moment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And just in transparency, we set up this studio last night, and there's only 2 outlets, and so the lights are plugged in and the computer's going dead. So like, oh, can I plug this in while they're talking? So it just goes to show you we learn as we go, right?
I think it's amazing, though. I think it actually looks amazing what you set up there, and it's just interesting as well with our guest that we've just had. He's phenomenal. And we're talking about what we're doing as well. If you look at something look at it in its entirety, sometimes it can be quite daunting. But then if you break things down into bite-sized chunks and you achieve those chunks as you go along, and then you've got that final, icing on the cake, it's just an interesting concept. And I was just thinking about being on a paddleboard around the sea, and I'm thinking about our shows as well. But it's just bite-sized chunks.
We are not going out to sea to do a show.
But bite-sized chunks is the way forward, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And while you were speaking, I was able to find an outlet to plug this in, so we're good. So one story that I wanted to share about being on a paddleboard, this is kind of funny. You're in your bathing suit, right? I wasn't wearing all the, the gear, and I was entering just where the bay goes into the ocean, and it's very rough, and a police boat pulls by and he wants to give me a ticket. So here I am, I'm like death grip with my toes trying to hold onto the board, and then his boat brings all these waves, and he wants to know where my life jacket is. I don't have a life jacket on, and I don't have one on the board, which I didn't even know that was something that was required, but apparently it is. So you can get a ticket. So he said that, he was going to have to follow me back to where I was going. I was like, what? So I had all that pressure with him in the boat following me back to the house. It was just, it was a lesson learned. I can't even imagine the things that Brendan went through. It's crazy when you're out there on the water by yourself on a board.
And the strange thing as well is that these board owners, they love taking their pets on board as well. There's a number of people who take their dogs, for example, on board the paddle at the same time. So
not around Great Britain.
Sure. Oh, no, there was. I remember
circumnavigating,
doing something like that as well. So anyway, so it's as I say, I think it's fabulous. Don't try to get me on one. Not for all the tea in China or all the plates at Fortnum and Mason's do I want to get on a paddleboard. I'll leave it up to the adventurous 2 of you, not for me.
It's a good experience because you learn how to keep balance, and it also helps you keep balance in your life. So
I get that.
Yeah.
But can you imagine? And for me, I suppose the sea, I don't look at it as this wonderful place. I don't. Although I like water and water sport and swimming, the thought of it when it gets dark and this big ocean, that's the bit that gets me. I mean, the resilience that you to endure that. I just, I've learned to love it. It must be so hard.
10 hours on a board is and the thing is, I know for me, I'm not a water person. I'm not a boater. I don't like being on the water. And the last thing I want to be is in the water. So when I got the board, I did it specifically to overcome a fear. And I said to myself, you will not fall off this board. You will not fall off this board. So of course, the first time I go out, I fall right off the board and I go into this hole. I land up in this mudslide, like underneath the water. It was disgusting. And from that time on, for the last, 5 years, I've never fallen off the board. But I just do it because I'm afraid. So I have to confront my fears. But thinking about what Brendan's doing when he mentioned the giant whales, and no.
I felt like mentioning about, was there any life-death experience? But I think that had to be it, surely. Amazing.
Yes.
But what Brendan's done and he's doing is phenomenal. One, the app, what a great idea. But 2, just to think how many lives that he will be saving by highlighting about the sea. And there's a lovely place, Lulworth Cove, here in Britain, Great Britain, and it's beautiful. And if you look at the Cove, it's serene, it's calm, it's a beautiful holiday place, and you get lots of families there. Every summer there's deaths, children, you know, and obviously, you know, what Brendan's doing it will stop this, hopefully, or at least reduce the amount of people that are killed. So it's so real and so fabulous. And the first, I've never heard of anyone doing anything so great to help this cause. So really, really thankful to Brendan. And wasn't it great having him go? So lovely.
It definitely was, yes. And our thanks to him and everything he's doing to bring awareness to how to save your life, prevent yourself from drowning. I love that, because what's the first thing you think? I can't breathe. I can't, I'm tired. I can't swim, whatever it is. And you have to just calm down and just float. You know, it seems so simple, but we don't even think about it. So, well, it was a lovely show. Thank you both so much. I've got a meeting to run to, but I look forward to seeing you again next week. And I'll just highlight you for anything you want to share with our audience before we go for today.
Really, just thank you for listening. I think another great show, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. We always just like to, you know, highlight causes and get great people on the show. And it's amazing what we can achieve when we all put our minds to it, really. That's the main thing.
And I think the other big thing is we're connecting United States and Britain together. And there's so many ways as possible. And I think that is so important. The more we can link together, people like ourselves can link together, the better for this world.
Absolutely.
I agree. Thank you. And thank you to the two of you for having this brilliant idea and making the connection. And I want our audience to remember the fact that anything is possible. Anything is possible if you put yourself out there, if you help other people, if you know, I could never have envisioned this ever in a million years. So it's just an incredible gift. So thank you both very much. And thank you to the listeners, and thank you to the viewers. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. And we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you next week. Bye. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.